intact as well. In 2011, the group was designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department, and it received a similar designation from the UN's Al-Qaeda and Taliban Sanctions Committee. We have a quote here from Ambassador Daniel Benjamin, and it reads in part, quote, "The attacks perpetrated by Caucasus Emirate illustrate the global nature of the terrorist problem we face today, and we stand in solidarity with the Russian people in our condemnation of these deplorable terrorist acts. The revelation that the FBI was asked by the Russian government 2 years ago, the same year as this terrorist designation, to investigate the older brother for potential extremist ties, and nothing was found, is causing unease at the Bureau, according to a member of the House Intelligence Committee."
There are a lot of palpitations going on within the FBI about what did they see when they looked into this, what, if anything, did they miss, and that's going to be heavily scrutinized.
We were also told today that this is just one of many groups that they are looking at this time, and it's also one that hasn't gotten a lot of attention in the past, Eric.
All right, thank you very much. A great reporting, Catherine. We're very honored today to have New York's former mayor, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, with us. And Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We all have a lot of questions for you. Let's bring it around the table. Angie, you can go first.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry you have to be seated right here next to our buddy Bob. But I want to ask you, a lot of people are wondering now what's going to happen to this guy and how should he be tried. And a lot of people may not know that you're a former U.S. attorney. You've tried a number of high-profile cases. How would you try this? And I did, Mr. Mayor, ask a former federal prosecutor how they would try it. Cully Stimson, who worked for George W. Bush and is now at Heritage, he said he would seek the death penalty, capital murder, national support for terror resulting in death. How would you approach it?
Well, I mean, that's obviously the way you would do it if you did it as a federal civil prosecution. There is the option of doing it as an enemy combatant in a military court. I know John McCain, Lindsey Graham, a couple of others are pushing for that. You need a little more evidence to know whether you can do that. You really have to know, did he become part of the terrorist war against the United States? These emails and texts that they're discovering kind of make a pretty good case that he was part of a group that's at war against the United States. If you can make that case, well, then you could try him in a military court. You could try him in Guantanamo and not have the spectacle of this trial having to take place in Boston or some other place where they would change venue.
Are you sure about military court, though? As I understood, it was for non-citizens and for foreign nationals.
But if a citizen becomes part of the war effort against the United States, let's take an example like this. Let's take the Second World War. Let's say an American citizen went over to Germany and joined the Nazi army and then invaded the United States. We could try that person in a military court. Now, the nature of this war is so ambiguous, you're going to get a lot of arguments as to whether or not that's a clear analogy. So it's an option, but it's a difficult option.
Let me ask you a question, Mayor. These guys came up with these 2 bombs that they dropped on the parade, on the marathon route. They also had them in their car when they were being chased by the police and threw them out. That's an awful lot of weaponry. The question remains, I guess, do they have help from people here? Did they test these things out somewhere? I mean, did your instinct tell you that there are other people involved who are still here in the United States and not apprehended?
My instincts tell me that other people helped them with certain aspects of this. Very hard to believe they could have pulled off that bombing as effectively as they did without help. The point that you make, it must have been tested. In fact, there is even some evidence of people in the area that heard sounds weeks before. Now, this could be who knows what, or it could be they were testing it out. Very unlikely that the first time they detonated those 2 devices was right there. Very unlikely they hadn't tested it before. Very unlikely that they'd have been able to pull that off without a little bit of help. Could do it, but I would say the FBI is much better off going on the hypothesis that there are other people involved. Let's go find those people. The fact that he went to Russia sounds like he got some help from there. Now, who is it there? What Chechen group is it? Are they connected to Al-Qaeda? Aren't they connected to Al-Qaeda? I mean, those are all questions that have to be answered. And the way you try a citizen in a military court is you basically say that he has given up his citizenship by joining the enemy army. He's waived his citizenship. He is no longer a citizen of the United States once he does that.
That's the point that they made in the drone attack. The legalization is that if you're an American but you're overseas and you're participating with...
And the Obama administration has used this legal argument to justify their their drone attacks. So it's not unfamiliar to them.
Mayor, about a year ago or so, the New York NYPD came under some fire for some listening into some, maybe using some surveillance techniques on certain groups.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, right. And there was a thing going back and forth between New York and New Jersey,
right.
Whether they were allowed to even do this or not. With all this going on, aren't we making the case for more of that rather than less of that?
Yeah, we have to do more of it. It's very uncomfortable. It's very... none of us want to give up any of our privacy, understandable. But the reality is, this is how you stop them. This is the only way you have to stop them. That is, getting the information in advance. They're doing everything they can to hide what they're doing. Law enforcement, intelligence agencies have to be able to do everything they can do to intrude into that and find out what the heck they're doing.
Mayor, as far as I can tell, we knew about Nidal Hassan. We knew about the guy who shot up the recruitment station in Little Rock. That he had been investigated by the FBI. This is now the third example where someone has been investigated and the ball is dropped. Meanwhile, we have the media discussing the root causes. The fact that perhaps maybe this kid had a tough time fitting in, or that he had an unusual relationship with his brother. It's absolutely insidious. I want to make a point here that...
Going to one of the best schools in Boston.
Yeah, he had every afforded luxury as somebody coming to the United States. My point is this. Is it right to be giving this much attention to these scumbags because it actually energizes other losers who see how easy it is to paralyze a city? And we sit there and we keep showing these pictures of these guys. Shouldn't we treat them like the dirtbags they are and stop showing them?
Well, I don't know if we should stop showing them. We should put equal emphasis on what's needed to find out about them in advance. And I'm not playing, Monday morning quarterback. Any one of these attacks. I remember September 11. 3 days, 4 days after September 11, you could pull out, as Dana will remember, you could pull out memos where if I had thought about it beforehand, I could have predicted September 11. But that's real hindsight. Right. You're probably going to be able to pick out memos and documents now where you could have predicted this. Yeah. What that should lead us to is not going back and criticizing the people who didn't do it then, but being a lot more aggressive in the future.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is the preoccupation with these psychological root causes, as opposed to the actual root cause.
And then we don't pay attention to what psychology is telling us. I think Major Hassan was a worse case than this.
Right.
Major Hassan was, how do you blow that?
Yeah.
I mean, he was basically telling you, I want to attack.
Exactly.
And we were promoting him in the military.
Exactly.
We blew that before, and then we blew it after by not calling that a terrorist act.
Yeah.
Incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Incomprehensible that that's not a terrorist. The man was planning to attack in order to further jihadist causes. He was communicating with Alawi to get help.
Right.
And then, just to make it really easy, when he's shooting the people, he's yelling out, Allah Akbar.
Yeah.
I got to go figure out motivation.
I think
he just
might be
gave
Catholic.
me his motivation.
Bob, can I just do this? They want me to get this in. You want to put the full screen up of, I believe it's Senator McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham's comment. Is that what you want to do, Porter? They want to say anyway. So these gentlemen have said that he shouldn't be Mirandized right away. They want to be able to interrogate him. I know you've agreed with them.
Well, I think the Miranda issue is an easier issue. He doesn't have to be Mirandized. For a lot of reasons. First of all, they have enough evidence to convict him without getting a confession from him. All Miranda gets you is a confession you can use in court. You can use that information for everything else. Remember, he confessed already to the guy they kidnapped.
Yep.
The guy he kidnapped says, these two guys told us we did the bombing. Well, they got a great witness, and they got a great confession, maybe even better than a law enforcement confession where you can claim it was forced out of you. They gave what I would call a spontaneous confession. So they don't have to worry very much about a confession.
Bob wants to get in here. Can I just follow up with you for a second? So then why did they need to make that statement? I'm trying to figure out why they made that statement.
I don't know exactly why they made it. Maybe because they got so much criticism. Remember the Christmas morning bomber that they Mirandized right away? Lost the opportunity to get information from him. So I think maybe they were playing a little defense.
Let me ask you a question, Mayor. They closed down the city of Boston, all of it. I mean, they closed down businesses, they closed down universities. Granted, this was a horrendous attack, but even after 9/11, you didn't close this city down. I mean, I'm just wondering whether they went overboard here. And then when they finally said, okay, everybody from Watertown can go out now and stretch their legs, and then they find the guys in the backyard of somebody in Watertown. I mean, why shut down an entire city like that?
Bob, I think you could have made that call either way. I don't criticize it. I'm not sure if I were in their situation, I wouldn't have made the same call. Here you have a shootout in the middle of the night. You got a guy on the loose. You have no idea where you're going to find them. You can find them in the middle of Boston Commons, or you can find them in Waltham, or you can find them anywhere. You know when you find him, there's probably going to be a massive shootout, and you don't want to see 10 kids get killed on the street in the middle of that shootout. So was it an excess of caution? Yes. Can you understand why they did it? Yes. I also think there was another law enforcement purpose to it. By shutting Boston down, they shut off from them a lot of ways to escape. Couldn't use the subways, couldn't use the buses, couldn't use the Amtrak, couldn't use this, couldn't use that. There's only one thing he could use: a car. So now you've kind of circled them. Pretty well, and I think that's another reason.
Better to be safe than sorry.
We're running out of time. Dana has a question.
Okay, so we don't have much time left, but we're going to keep you for one more block. So you have to stay. Okay. One of the things you're talking about in the green room is that because law enforcement performs so ably in these situations, that Americans as citizens, you don't have to have this as your top worry, that you can let law enforcement worry about it. Yeah, this is a very difficult message, and I think both President Bush and President Obama have actually struck a good tone on this, but I'm not sure people listen to them. The fact is, the government should be very worried about terrorism. The government should be compulsive about terrorism. And the rest of us shouldn't worry about it too much. Right. That doesn't mean we shouldn't, if we see something, we shouldn't turn it in, but we shouldn't go stop our lives. We are all going to die. Right. And we're probably going to die of something else other than terrorism.
Mayor, we got to jump in. I hate to cut you off, but we're coming up against a hard break. When we come back,